Hey guys, welcome again to the Awkward Black Nerd podcast. It is me, Daisy Kane. Hopefully you had a decent week. Mine was okay. Today it was actually, I don't know, I had to take care of some errands and stuff. But I did get into an interesting conversation with the person that worked on my car today. He's like, he was a huge comic book fan, and he saw like the stickers on my Chromebook. So we got into like a discussion about that, and I thought it was kind of interesting because I've been kind of like, I don't want to say I've been talking about comic books like a lot this week, but it's just kind of like floated into like some of my daily discussions. Like I talked to like my dad actually about some stuff earlier in the week. Then also me and my husband, we've been talking about random stuff because we watch like a lot of stuff on Disney Plus as well. And plus like, we were talking about what we're doing for Halloween this year because our daughter, like, she was going back and forth whether or not she wanted to be a superhero, and then she decided that she wanted to be Princess Peach, and it kind of put me and him in a predicament because she still wants us to be superheroes. Like, she wants him to dress up as Batman, and she kind of wants me to dress up as like another superhero. And like, I actually took her to Party City yesterday, and I think we're actually supposed to be going to like, we're finally going to the Spirit Halloween store, which has been like a task within itself. But the reason why we're going is because she wants to dress up like Princess Peach, and she kind of talked me into it, or she kind of gave me like the motivation to do it. I'm actually going to be dressing up as a particular superhero that is really green and very powerful, and I've always been a huge fan of hers, and I figured when I made the decision it would be kind of right up my alley because I like going to Comic Cons. That's like, I think that's like the one thing I kind of miss most about like this whole pandemic situation, like going to like Comic Cons and just seeing people like in costumes and just coming together and just geeking out over like the same thing. And like, I've always been curious about cosplay. Like I've tried like dabbling in it, like very beginner stuff. Like I'm not hardcore like some people I know, but it's always been kind of cool to me. And like, I've always wanted to see if I could do it. And it kind of like ties into what I'm going to be for Halloween, and it kind of ties into today's discussion. So for Halloween, I decided I was going to be She-Hulk. Like I actually bought like the green body paint, and I still got to just like order like a green wig and stuff. And I think I'm actually going to like just set balls to the wall and do it. And I figure it's kind of suiting, especially since that is the subject of today. I will be discussing Marvel's very own She-Hulk. And coincidentally enough, she's actually getting her own TV series, I believe, hopefully sometime next year. It's going to be on Disney Plus. So I figured today will be a great way to like just talk about why I like the character and why I'm truly, truly, truly excited for her to finally be introduced like live action wise. And I think actually like, I believe they're finally going to try to tie her into like the MCU. Like I know a lot of the shows on Disney Plus are going to be like tied into the MCU. Like I believe in phase 4. So it'll be freaking awesome, I believe, to see how she ties into like the MCU finally. So, I guess let's get into it. So She-Hulk was born Jennifer Susan Walters. She was originally created by, the famous writer Stan Lee. And her first appearance was in the Savage She-Hulk in February of 1980. And her origin story, like I know like the origin story's pretty much been the same. Like they updated like maybe like one or two details. But basically her origin story is like after she was like, she's a criminal lawyer. And after being fatally wounded, she receives an emergency blood transfusion from her cousin, Bruce Banner, who is, as any comic book nerd should know, the Incredible Hulk. And when she gets the transfusion, she becomes a milder version of the Hulk. Like she still has the symptoms where she's green, she becomes large, but her symptoms, she becomes like she has like a less monstrous appearance and more like an Amazon appearance. She also has she'll gain abilities of superhuman speed, agility, stamina, reflexes, and of course superhuman strength. And I believe it potentially makes her the most physically strongest known woman in the Marvel universe. Some people might contest that, but who knows. But basically, her body becomes superhumanly durable and nearly impervious to force, pain, and disease. Her skin can also now withstand extremes of temperature as well as tremendous stresses and impacts without puncture wounds or lacerations. And her enhanced physiology renders her immune to all terrestrial diseases. And once she becomes She-Hulk, she also becomes she becomes formidable in hand-to-hand combat. Having been, and she eventually, like, I know, like, she is trained by, like, Captain America and Gamora, but even in her human form, in her Jennifer Walters form, she possesses a certain skill in martial arts. Like, so she's a skilled martial artist, and I know she's sufficient in, like, acupressure, especially, like, that, I know she uses that against Abomination, who's, like, a villain in the Incredible Hulk series. But I think the cool thing about, like, what I like about She-Hulk, like, unlike her cousin, Bruce Banner, she retains most of her personality and intelligence and emotional control. So, like, unlike the Hulk, she, but the cool thing is, like, so, like the Hulk, she's, like, still, like, she can still get, like, temper outbursts, and she'll become stronger if she's enraged, but I think it's cool that she still, like, she has more emotional control than her cousin does. And I know in later issues, she gains more control of her transformations after getting help from Michael Morbius, who cured her of lethal blood disease. And, let's see. So, and I know she decided to retain, like, her She-Hulk form, like, permanently down the road anyway, because she preferred having, like, the confidence and freedom it gave her as opposed to in her human form. And so I'll give you a little more backstory on her. Basically, I know one of the writers, Peter David, described She-Hulk as having the potential to be like Marvel's version of Wonder Woman. And I guess it's because she's a powerful female with a strong moral compass and a determination to do what's right. And I think it's awesome. Like, I know, like, she's basically, like, has this unique combo of brains and brawn. Let's see, a little more backstory about her is that she attended UCLA School of Law, and so she's a highly skilled lawyer who became, like, I guess, a hero by accident. But because of that, she frequently uses her legal and personal expertise to serve as legal counsel to the various heroes and metahumans throughout the Marvel universe. And another cool fact about her is that she's also a skilled pilot and has previously used, like, a 1995 Dodge that was equipped with, like, technology that's enabled flight in the Earth's atmosphere and in outer space for, like, small distances. But she can't, I know it's not capable of interstellar flight, but I thought it was cool that she's, like, a skilled pilot. Plus, another cool thing about her is she's also, like, I always liked the whole She-Hulk because she wasn't, like, typically written as, like, a lot of like comic book females, like, especially, like, when it comes to relationships. Like, her relationships with men have always been defined by her dual needs for independence and acceptance. Like, growing up, she was raised, like, her father raised her to, like, basically, I guess, live her life, like, following his values, yet she felt her decision to become a criminal defense lawyer was seen as like a homage to him, but he took it as a rejection. And I feel like that's always been deep rooted in her. And another interesting aspect, like, that I like about her is that she's complex, where she, even though, like, a part of her deeply values close emotional ties to, like, family and friends, she seldomly still kind of, like, admits, like, certain depth to such attachments. But I found it interesting that once she joined certain other superhero teams, such as the Avengers and the Fantastic Four, they became, like, a surrogate family for her. So, like, I always thought it was interesting that she had those relationships. Like, I always thought of her as, like, a complex character, and I always like seeing her, like, have those kind of relationships. So another cool thing about her is that, like I said, she's been a member of the Avengers, the Fantastic Four. She's also been a part of Heroes for Hire, and in that arc, she actually dated Luke Cage while she was helping with legal work. She's also been part of the Defenders, the Fantastic Fours, as well as working for S.H.I.E.L.D. So I'm actually going to discuss like some of my favorite, I guess, storylines, and I guess go into why I actually am like a fan of hers. Like, one of the many reasons why I'm a fan of the She-Hulk is because, like, also kind of like Deadpool, she was one of those comic books that like broke the fourth wall, and I always thought that was interesting because you really, like, you didn't see like a lot of. I thought it was always interesting when like the comics, like the comic book characters were aware that they were a comic book character. Like, you kind of see it now with like Gwenpool, but I remember like She-Hulk and Deadpool were one of those two characters that like always stood out to me as far as breaking the fourth wall, because they were always so like mischievous about it. And I believe for a time, like starting with the sensational She-Hulk, she was portrayed as like a metafictional, with the form of metafictional awareness, that she was able to break the fourth wall. Like, she showed like visuals of like tearing pages, walking through advertisements, you know, to earn control, like, you know, the enemy's control center. And she actually sometimes engaged like with some of the writers, like for example John Byrne, and like the comics editor Renee, I don't want to butcher her last name, so Wither Stater, I probably butchered her last name. And actually, like, Sensational She-Hulk number 50, which was John Byrne's last issue, and I actually have a personal copy of, involved, like, that's one of my favorite gags. It involves, like, the editor basically tying up John in, like, a closet while her and, like, She-Hulk try to, like, find, like, a new book writer. And I know, like, the trend actually went on, I think, while she was also doing like Heroes for Hire. And I know there was like a gag where she actually like spoke to like the book's narrator, and she like was always like, she talked shit to him and basically fired him for like screwing up the plot. And I know like with the Dan Slott series, he took a different approach to like the metafiction angle, basically making the heroes of the Marvel Universe permit licensed comic book adaptations of their adventures to be published. And I remember, since like all the comics before 2001 bear like that comic code seal of America, like the federal agency in the Marvel Universe, they were considered like legal documents admissible as evidence in the superhuman law cases in which She-Hulk worked. And then I thought it was also cool, like there's like another running gag. I wonder if you play She-Hulk against like Deadpool as the final opponent in Marvel vs. Capcom 3, she'll say something funny like, you know, if this game was made in 1991, I'll be the one whacking you with the health bar. And that actually referred to Deadpool breaking the fourth wall, like his hyper move, which he attacks the opponent with his own health bar. And I just thought that was like always like awesome. That's like always been like one of those running gags that made me like always a fan of comic books and stuff. And like some of the other storylines that I was like a fan of was when she was actually part of the Avengers. I remember her being friends with like Janet Van Dyne, and who was actually like a huge influence on She-Hulk's like personal development and encouraging her to be like more easygoing. And I think while she was in the Avengers, she actually was transported by the Beyonder to participate in the Secret Wars, which sparked her long-standing rivalry with Titania. I always pronounce that name wrong, so forgive me. And I know shortly after that, when she returned to Earth, she temporarily replaced the Thing in as a member of the Fantastic Four. And while she was a part of the Fantastic Four, that's when she started her romance with Wyatt Wingfoot. Sorry about that. I'm like, my brain is like all over the place today. It's like I'm trying to rush through this before I have to take care of some other stuff, so forgive me if I'm like seem like I'm all over the place. Yeah, so it was here like when she was part of the Fantastic Four that she started her romance with Wyatt Wingfoot. And I always liked this relationship because here she kind of expressed like vulnerability a little bit. She let her guard down. I know like he helped her through some hard times, especially like traumatic events where her being photographed topless by the paparazzi, or when she was like sexually harassed and strip searched by some corrupt S.H.I.E.L.D. agents. Like, he was able to like help her let her guard down. And I know like that story arc showed like her being vulnerable, which you kind of don't see with a lot of like strong female like comic book characters. Another storyline that I was a fan of is like, I know in the Sensational She-Hulk number 15, there was they introduced like a gray version of She-Hulk, which kind of shared like the similar of her cousin's like characteristics, like as far as like a childlike mind. She spoke in third person, and it was like a huge separation from her Jennifer Walters character. Like she referred to like her human form as like puny, and I do believe like 2 issues later she returned back to her green color. But I always thought that was like an interesting like storyline too, because I know they kind of try to steer away from like her being compared to her cousin, but it was interesting to see like her take that turn for like a brief time. Another storyline that I'm a fan of, like if you ever get a chance, you should try to look up when they did like, I'm one of those people that's like, when people say I'm a comic book fan, they always ask me, who do you like more, Marvel or DC? And it's hard to say because I'm a fan of both. Like I grew up like, I guess leaning toward more DC, but I've always liked Marvel. Marvel in a small way, but I like grew to like Marvel a little bit more as an adult naturally. But I'm a huge fan of both, and like I love when they do crossovers. So if you ever get a chance, look into the DC Marvel crossover. You can go into the DC Marvel crossover JLA/Avengers, and I know when she appears in that, she's like brainwashed and she fights the Avengers, and like she later assists them by helping like hunt down the 12 artifacts needed to trap the DC villain Krona. And I know like I thought it was interesting like how she battled like Aquaman in Asgard, and then later she helped the rest of the heroes in the Savage Land. And I love that during the final battle against Krona, she actually helps out Wonder Woman with her battle against Satur. I'm sorry, I'm like talking really fast, but I always just thought that was like an interesting like crossover. So if anybody's like a fan of hers, like, you know, I feel like that's on the list of like battles and stuff. And interestingly enough, like I remember like another storyline that I'm a fan of, and I kind of was thinking about it like when I watched like Captain America Civil War the other night. Like I always wish that she was part of the MCU, especially since like I know during Civil War, like in the comics, like she registered under the Superhuman Registration Act, and she was actually in support of Tony like Stark. So it would have been interesting to see how like their relationship worked out. But I know in the comics, like as an attorney, she also advised like individuals of both sides of the war, like of both sides of Civil War. So that just would have been interesting to like kind of see. And like, you know, who knows how like it's going to play out in the actual MCU now. So, another storyline I'm a fan of is like, during, World War Hulk. I know like that's around the time like Hulk like disappeared and stuff, and like she got involved with working with S.H.I.E.L.D. and like I know that she discovered some information about where her cousin's whereabouts were, and I know like her relationship with like Iron Man was kind of contentious then because he feared that she was going to cause problems, so he like secretly injects her with like spin tech that puts her back into her human form. And I like how like the dynamic between them kind of like becomes so heavy, because naturally she's angry that he did that to her, but just the way she threatens him, she basically says, you miscalculated your move, because while as She-Hulk would have pummeled you, but now as me just being Jennifer Walters, I have the ability to destroy you now. Like, so basically she's just saying you effed up. And I know she gets her powers back temporarily by Amadeus Cho, so she could take out like Doc Samson. But I know like when he asked her to like join him, she kind of declines his offer to have like her powers restored back like permanently. But that's also one of my favorite like Hulk like storylines as well. And I know like in recent ones, like I guess the most recent storyline that I'm a fan of is like, I know she pops up in Gwenpool's like first Christmas special. Like she actually lives like, I want to believe like in this timeline or like in this story arc, she lives with like Howard the Duck's like apartment building. Like I know like in other comics they work together in the Fantastic Force, but like so Howard the Duck invites her to like Gwenpool to She-Hulk's Christmas party on the provision that she not kill any good guys, because like anybody that reads like Gwenpool, like she gives 0 F's about killing people. So like she makes the promise, and I actually thought it was like a cute comic because she shows up, she does karaoke with Miss Marvel, and then there's also like a one-shot image of her holding mistletoe over her head and inviting like She-Hulk to kiss her while Miss Marvel looks over like geeking out about it. And like I know there was like a bunch of other superhumans in attendance, proving that whether like She-Hulk is acting like a hero or not, she keeps close ties to the super community. So I think that's like probably why I've always been a fan of her. Like even though like I feel like she's super, super underrated, I always like the fact that like she was one of those heroes that kind of is like an advocate for other superheroes. So, and hopefully they do more of that with like the live action She-Hulk that's coming up. I know like in the past they try to do 2 TV projects for She-Hulk, and I know they try to do like a movie in like the early 90s. They even got like Bridget Nielsen to like screen test, like she posed for pictures, but like I know the film never completed, and I mean no offense, it probably was going to be like hot garbage, but I would have paid to see that. But I think it's cool that like there's always been talks about it, especially like throughout the MCU, like when the MCU like gained momentum. And I do believe in November, like Kevin Feige finally said that there was plans to actually put She-Hulk in future like MCU films, following her introduction to the She-Hulk television series, which finally got the green light like shortly after. And I know like they finally picked a lead for the Disney Plus series, an actress by the name of Tatiana Maslany. I hope I'm not mispronouncing her last name. And anybody that knows her, I know she was in like Orphan Black, and she's like an amazing actress. And I really think that like if they do this correctly, like it's gonna be amazing. Like I know like personally I feel like maybe they don't need to go into like her origin. Maybe they could do like flashbacks and stuff. Although if they get Mark Ruffalo on it, because I know he gave like his blessing about it, like that'd be awesome. But I feel like maybe if they do it like, I personally love if they did it like Jessica Jones style, like how they did it in the same context as like the Netflix shows that they got rid of, which I'm still hyper pissed about that. Like if they do it in that context, but maybe not as gritty because they can't because it's on Disney Plus. But like I feel like if they do it kind of gritty, or just kind of like keep the storyline solid. But I know like certain writers that they have on there's going to be like humor injected to it too. So I feel like if they like actually calculate it and take their time to do research and do it correctly, that this is actually going to be like an amazing like series. Although like the MCU has really kind of been knocking it out of the park. I mean, don't get it twisted. There's like 1 or 2 like duds in the can that like the MCU doesn't have like a perfect record, even though some people get on a high horse and say they do. But come on, there's like a couple of films that are like, you know. But I feel like the MCU like is really gonna knock it out of the park with this. So we'll see how it goes. I'm personally excited. I can't wait to even like try to like go into my She-Hulk like costume. Like we're not doing anything major. Like I know we're not going to take our kid trick-or-treating. I know she's doing something for school, but it'd just be nice to hang out at the house and just dress up anyway, because like Halloween's always been a favorite of mine. And I might actually take pictures of like, if it turns out okay, I'll take pictures of it and put it on my social media. Speaking of which, please feel free to reach out to me on social media. You can DM me on my account, Awkward Blerd Girl, as well as Awkward Black Nerd Podcast at gmail.com. You can send me questions or comments and stuff, because eventually down the road, maybe like in a few more episodes, I would like to do like a live Q&A where I just answer your guys' comments, or just take some of your questions and stuff. So you can pretty much ask me anything, just be respectful, or just like if you have suggestions for like ideas for other like shows down the road, that'd be amazing. And I'm gonna pretty much wrap this up. Like I would love to do like another comic book character. Maybe like, I'm thinking in the next coming like episodes, maybe like next like 2 or 3 episodes, I would love to talk about my favorite comic book characters, like underrated ones. So I'll probably be discussing ones like that aren't as highly like regarded, but